Hey, this episode is brought to you in part by Slate Real Estate Advisors and Signature Doors and Windows. Now, onto the show.
And the guy said, Dana, do you think preservation is kind of like having a disease? I said, no question about it. Just watch you do it. And people see it and people feel it. You can't stop.
Hi. Hello.
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 Hello and welcome to Architecting.
Hi, welcome to Architecting. I'm Rebecca Wagner here with the host, Adam Wagner. Hey, Adam, who's on the podcast today?
Hey, well, look, you know who's on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So
who do we have on today?
Dana Crawford.
Dana Crawford. Yeah. So this is a big one. So Dean Nan Elin of CU Denver College of Architecture and Planning. She's a great supporter of the show and be a future guest at some point. But she connected me with Dana Crawford. I had the honor to just be able to sit with her and hear her story and hang out and get advice. So yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Dana Crawford, developer of Larimer Square and Union Station and Flour Mill, and now moving on to places like Trinidad, Colorado, and Idaho Springs. But she's just a force.
Yeah.
And it's such a great story and perseverance. And especially when she started developing, had essentially no experience with it, but just had a vision and just a tenacity with that vision of seeing how she could preserve parts of Denver that were being torn down and then just bring life back to the place.
Yeah, the vision she had to have and like the drive to get there. I'm really excited to hear the story.
Especially like she started when she had 4 kids under 8.
That's insane.
Insane.
Can't even,
Yeah.
I don't get it.
And she was just like, I'm going to buy up this block of buildings. Yeah. I think we had just a good conversation, about her life and tenacity, but just also about how you deal with all these everyday, like pushing the boulder up the hill and, they'll always be there. But having that patience and knowing that some kind of solution will come up, and just getting better and better at juggling these boulders. So yeah, it's good. She's funny, she's sharp, she's super interesting. And I felt honored to be able to talk with her for a little bit.
Yeah, super excited to hear it.
Yeah, enjoy. But hey, today's episode is sponsored by Slate Real Estate Advisors, and we have Slate's co-founder, Jorgen Jensen, here to tell us more about their company.
Thanks, Adam. Slate is a residential real estate brokerage created for design-conscious buyers, sellers, and developers. We do have an office in Lower Highlands. We've been here for 6 years. We're currently located at the corner of 17th and Central Street. At Slate, our passion has always been to connect people to exceptional living spaces. We are driven by design and the opportunity we have to enhance the quality of our built environment, local communities, and the lives of our clients.
And I really love how engaged Slate is with our Colorado design community. They've published a design directory on their website highlighting many local architects, good architects, many of whom I've had on this show or who will be on this show. They've launched an art space in their office called Nook. It's Denver's smallest art gallery as a platform for engaging the local art community and hosting events. And they published the Slate Edition, a digital newsletter where they highlight some of the people, spaces, and places that they find most inspiring, both locally and globally. We're glad to have them as a partner here on the show and look forward to more of what they do. Check them out at slaterea.com. Hey, we're happy to be sponsored by Modern in Denver Magazine. For over a decade, they've been crafting fantastically curated content on Colorado designers and projects, spreading the gospel of good design within our region.
And I love how the goal of Modern in Denver aligns with the goal of this podcast, to better build up and connect the community of Colorado designers. So go buy a copy of the magazine at your local bookstand, subscribe to their weekly email list, and follow them on Instagram.
Check it out.
They were involved with the project I'm working on early on.
Yeah.
And
With the Argo.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw that project. Those renderings. I was up at the Mary Jo is doing the ULI. Mary Jane is doing the ULI event up there, and then I worked for Open Studio on the parking structure up there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you want to talk about that one or not. But
Oh yeah, I do. I think that's one of the, more interesting projects that will have a lot of impact when it gets done.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I think.
And there's another project we're working on in Idaho Springs.
Oh, really? What's that one?
Well, it's a Bauhaus school,
Really?
and so it's owned by the education department, and we want to take it back to its kind of leadership role in the community in terms of health and wellness and thoughtfulness. And it was a high school to begin with, and a lot of people are still around that went to that school. And there was a guy that was the principal, and he was a very inspiring person. And now little Kitty's going to be wanting to have a voice in it. Yeah.
Correcting you.
Yeah.
Well, nice. Again, thank you so much for having me to your loft here, and such a peaceful space and warm space. We were talking earlier. It's not often out here that I get to meet somebody who grew up so close to where I did, but we grew up 15 minutes away and a few years apart. But growing up in Kansas, in Salina, how would you describe yourself in 2 sentences? Who are you or one word?
Well, when you're from Kansas, why, you're always from Kansas. It's pretty easy to fall in love with Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And I early on fell in love with Colorado and realized that it just has so much of the story of the West to tell. And I wanted us to be able to graphically tell that story through saving buildings.
And so how did you get there? I mean, to me, like, Salina was the big city around McPherson, growing up, and there's sort of at least a density of people there. But when you grew up, were you in Salina? Were you kind of out in the country? What was your life like then?
Well, we lived in the city, and I went to the high school, and I loved it, and I still love Kansas, and I still love Salina, although I just can't never go because it makes me sad. And it isn't so much that my parents aren't there. It's just that Kansas is such an atmospheric space. I don't know whether you notice this, but when I go there, the humidity is so different.
Mm-hmm.
The wind blows. It's like having some sort of a change to your whole being, and there you are, where you started out, and I get very nostalgic.
It has a lot of extremes, right? It's very hot, very cold, very windy, but somehow I feel like fortified from being there, right? Like growing up in that wind.
Yeah.
If someone complains about the wind here, it's not that, but
Yeah, I just always say, and because it's been kind of warm here lately, and I just say to people, I promised I would never complain.
So did I hear you were somehow associated with Kanopolis growing up? Yeah.
Yeah.
You spent a lot of time there at the reservoir, at the lake.
Well, my father, you want funny stories, but when I was in graduate school, the guys, it was an affiliate of the Harvard Business School, and the guys were, always interested in girls. And so they would ask me, well, where'd you prep? And I would say, well, Salina High School, and smile sweetly. And then later on, they'd say, well, what business is your father in? I'd say, well, he's in the boat business. Well, then they really ran the boat business in Kansas. But yes, we were in the boat business, and I learned a whole lot about boats and having fun.
Yeah. We spent a lot of summer days there at Kanopolis and enjoyed that. But so you go to your prep school at Salina High, and then what's next? How do you know what to do next? Where do you go to KU?
No, I didn't go to KU, and although my parents both went to KU, and friends of my mother seemed to be quite shocked that she sent me off to a junior college near St. Louis, a 2-year school, and it was called Monticello College. We always mispronounced Monticello, and it was a marvelous experience. It's a girls' school, close to a potentially great city, St. Louis. And then after 2 years there, I went to KU for 2 years. And then I always laughingly say, no one would marry me. And so I went to graduate school.
Huh. Well, what was the decision process like for each of those schools? I mean, was it your parents kind of directing you towards the first one, and then the idea of coming back to Kansas?
It was just assumed that's
really?
where it was going to be.
Yeah,
I'd be a graduate at the University of Kansas.
and then what was your degree in?
Oh, something really, really important: English Lit.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Again, that was your choice, or that was something assumed?
Well, my mother had said that, in that day and age, that I wanted to go to college, but she said, you have to come out and be able to do something. And about the only thing that you could be hired to do as a woman at that time was be a secretary or be a teacher, the choices were very. So I went into the School of Education when I went to KU. And this sounds like such a self-serving story. I got called into the dean's office because I just cut classes all the time. Those education courses were they were just deadly. And so, and I'd gone into one of my teachers and I said, I don't know whether you even noticed or not, but I'm not coming in very often. And I said, you tell us all the answers that are going to be needed on the test. And so I said, I just came in to thank you and say, I probably will keep cutting this class. And he said, we don't care. He said, we only really like our graduate courses anyway. But at any rate, so I'd had that experience, and I went, you just won't have any trouble getting me to talk because I just talk. But so you can cut. And at any rate, the academic dean called me in, and she said, and I was nervous. And she said, I've been looking at your record, Dana. And she said, if you get out of the School of Education and just get into the college, you can make 5.8. Like, that sounds cool. So that's what I did. Didn't tell my mother for a long time, but so that's what I did. And
you could make what? What was it?
Phi Beta Kappa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so that's no bad deal. So go around with that certificate. And so I think, although I'm not an architect, it did kind of help me with the thought process.
Yeah, right. And then, but then was Harvard then your choice? Was that probably wasn't part of like the expected path, or I like you're like rolling your eyes here, but yeah.
Well, I'm rolling my eyes, but since I had to go back into the college, I had to take a heavy course of classes in order to, make up for what I missed out on cutting those other classes. And so I took a course in, if I had a minor, it was sort of sociology and politics and cities. I always liked cities. And I was taking this reading course from a guy named McCluggage, Mr. McCluggage. And so I would go and I'd read, and then I'd go in and talk to him. So I'm waiting for my class or my session with him, and I'm reading the notices on his board. And there's a notice about a women's program at Radcliffe and Harvard in business administration, and that you could apply. So, and I knew he'd gone just the year before. And so when I got it in, I said, Mr. McCluggage, do you think that would be a good thing for me to do? He said, you're just a natural. And so I applied and got in right away.
Huh.
And but I had to write back and say, well, I'd love to come, but my parents can't send me. And so thank you very much. And they wrote back and they said, full tuition scholarship.
Ah, wow.
So I wrote back, thanks, I'll be there.
See you soon.
Yeah, see you soon. So that's what I did. And that was the really big turning point, because I worked this class. There were 80 women in this class, and half of them had been out of school for and had been working in various jobs, and half of us were just straight out of liberal arts. And the way the school was set up was we had the same professors and the same cases from the business school across the river. But we couldn't go because the boys had such bad language. That was the excuse. And of course we were in minute classes out where we were across the river. But at any rate, I had a working session in the spring at the Museum of Science in Boston, and the Museum of Science was just brand new, right on the Charles River. Just didn't have any money, and I was in the public relations department. And everything I'd ever been doing in my life said, "You're ready."
Yeah.
And so I went into PR.
Huh. It just directed you in. Yeah. Funnel. All the stars aligned for for a little bit at least, until you later found your real calling. But what was that like coming into Cambridge and Boston, and had you been to spend a lot of time in larger cities before, or?
Oh, I've been in Kansas City, I've been in St. Louis, I've been in Chicago. But, and then by the time I went to Boston and Cambridge, I'd been in New York. But I really liked that Boston, and I really liked Cambridge, and I really liked New England. And so I thought, when I get out of school, I'll come back here. And I was going to live with Ann Hetherington, my good friend, but she got married that summer.
Mm.
And so I was dating somebody from Denver, so I came out here, and that was that. Yeah.
That happens to a lot of us. That's what happened to me as well. Yeah.
Did you go back to New England too?
Yeah. So I went to grad school at Yale, and then moved to Mexico City for a little bit, and then moved here where my wife's family is from. But yeah, I also felt New England felt really good to me as well. Just it's cooler. The beach is there, and just the
seafood,
the pizza.
Yeah.
But so Denver. I mean, so growing up, you were saying you had an affinity for Colorado, but then moving here felt pretty good, or you were thinking you'd go back to New England at some point?
No, I mean it just the minute I got here, I got rid of the boyfriend, and I just started working for a really good PR firm, and learning a lot about the city, and wondering why in the world they had just torn down the Denver Club building, fabulous building, and I mean, I knew the difference between a really, really good building and I knew through just exposure the vintage of these buildings and the history. And I hadn't been particularly fond of history as a course because, it can get pretty boring. And so I just, and everybody seemed to ski. And so I thought I better learn to ski. And that was basically a pretty big disaster, but it was fun. Everything was fun. Oh, fresh air, and a lot of smart people from a lot of smart places. And if I got a chance to go to Boston, I went in a hurry.
Yeah,
just for a visit.
Right. So what year did you come here then? When was that around?
54.
54. So they weren't tearing as much things down yet, right? That kind of came more in the 60s a little bit, but there was, so the downtown was mostly like Larimer Square still, 2-3-story brick. No,
it was in kind of a little bit of a boom. A lot of
really?
Texas people here were building pretty horrible buildings.
Yeah.
And
sort of like a first of like the oil kind of boom of.
Listen, we had there were so many boys running around this town in the oil business and in the mining business, and you could just go out every night if you wanted to. I didn't want to, but at any rate, it was just a lively place.
Yeah.
And I was very active at the art museum, and very active, and I had this bug in my mind about doing something that would make Denver a little bit more like Boston, and would make it pay attention to its roots. It just wasn't paying attention, and it really had juicy roots. So that was kind of the beginning of looking for the place to do that.
Yeah. Well, what do you think it is about Denver that it didn't appreciate the history as much? Is it sort of they were cycling through kind of buildings so quickly?
Well, I mean, Denver didn't get started until 58. And so there were still a lot of people around who were here when it got started.
Hmm.
So they didn't like to think of themselves as historic,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
And so, preservation just wasn't something that was, well, on a national basis, it wasn't going on in a huge way. But certainly here, it just was not going on. And so after we started Larimer Square, well, then, of course, I got more and more involved with the whole movement and went on the board of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And I was back and forth to the East Coast a lot.
Before we get there, yeah. So you chased a boy here, dumped him, but then married another guy and started a family.
Mm-hmm.
I like as watching the PBS documentary, and they say, oh, she moved here and then she had 4 boys and then she did Larimer Square. And I've got 2 kids right now, a 2.5-year-old and a 5.5-year-old, and I'm like, you don't just say had 4 boys and then did something else. Like that's a lot in itself, right?
Yeah.
And so you had kids. Were you still then doing PR work and work with the museum and everything? And
yeah, well, I don't know whether it's the water from Kansas or what, but I have high energy. And my husband and I wanted to have our family in a really pretty big hurry because at that time, this is so funny now, but I so firmly believed that if I had kids after the time that I was 30, they'd be idiots. I really believe that.
Huh.
And so, when people always usually in interviews, they always say, well, what is your favorite project? Well, I invariably say, my family, my 4 sons.
Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah.
So, but it's, it's fun to talk about your life when it's been so wonderful. And I've had such a wonderful life. All you have to do is just look at this loft and realize how wonderful it is.
Yeah, that's true. So then what was it? I mean, I'm so interested in that spark with Larimer Square, and you have this background in English and PR and these different urban experiences, and you have all this energy. And what is that turning point, or what is that spark when you say, okay, yeah, let's start buying buildings?
Well, I wonder which came first. I was looking for this place. I knew I'd find this place that would tell me. And so I found the 1400 block on Larimer, and I looked it up, and it was slated to be torn down. And so I thought, well, I've been talking a lot to my friends and, to a lot of people about this idea that I had that was kind of driving me about doing this place that would recognize and make the fact that Denver was here and that it was on its way to be a great city, and that it could be one of the big voices in making people understand about the West and how the West had evolved and how the architecture told the story. So, most people just say, oh, Dana talking again. And so I went to the library, and after I had found the 1400 block of Larimer, and it was just kind of a broken down old block, and 1400 block of Larimer. So I went in and I said to the librarian, do you have any pictures or stories, or can you give me the background of of that block on Larimer Street? And she said, oh, we have quite a bit.
Huh.
And so I sat down, and she just kept bringing me stuff and bringing me stuff and bringing me stuff. And pretty soon I was just surrounded. And I thought, oh, I think I feel the hand of fate. I have to stop talking about it, and I have to do it. That's really about how it worked out. And then, so I got some really fabulous photographs taken of the block. And then from the photographs, I made a model. And I had the model, and then I went to the hobby store, and I got little gas lights and little cars and little things, that made it look, and the architecture was there and on both sides of the street. And it was a pretty terrible one.
Yeah.
And but it was sitting in my dining room one day, and a very, very close friend of ours walked in, and he said, he asked the fatal question, "What's this?" And so I told him about the dream, and he said, "Well, I like it. I'll invest." So, and then I'd found some other guy that owned 4 buildings there in the block already. And they both had gone, wow, this is cool. So, we put it together as a business, a real estate endeavor, and off we went.
How old were your kids at this point?
They were, let's see, everybody was in school. So Duke was probably, Duke's the youngest one, probably 6.
Huh.
And then 8, 8.5, 9.5.
Wow.
And we lived on Capitol Hill, and in a really neat house in a really neat neighborhood. And so
They were just old enough that they didn't mess up that model and play with it too much. And
no one else has asked that question ever. I think I let them play with it.
Yeah.
And I have a philosophy about bringing up kids that's a little different from other people. And so they were always kind of involved with and God only knows. I mean, John Crawford was in the oil business, but he very swiftly saw his wife drowning on Larimer Street, which was Skid Row. And so he came and helped me. And then we'd come home and we'd talk about work at home in front of the kids. Bad deal. Because, it was so hard. Oh, it was so hard. So,
just the stresses of putting that deal together and figuring out what it is. And
oh, yeah.
That's what I want to hear about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and somebody said being a developer is sort of like being a juggler. You're juggling all these different things, all these 18 different buildings, and all these different tenants, office tenants and retail tenants. And you want this to be so cool that everybody comes to Larimer Street, because everybody, of course, said no one will come to Larimer Street. But we opened at the end of the year in 65. We had announced in 65 with a place. Every single one of these things is just a great big story. But your father's mustache. Your father's mustache was a banjo buckle.
Huh.
And it was developed and owned by a fellow named Joel Schiavone from New Haven.
Really?
And Joel's father was, and probably isn't still, but the biggest scrap iron dealer in the United States.
Really?
So you probably went by that place in New Haven. And so Joel grew up in New Haven, and everybody says he had a stammer. He had a terrible stammer.
Huh.
And everybody said, "You're never going to go to Yale." So he did. And then he wanted to go to Harvard Business School. So, and he went up to Cambridge to be interviewed, and they said, you know, there's just no point in your trying to do this because you've got this terrible stammer.
Wow.
Now, if you can figure out how to get into business and get rid of the stammer, you can come to the school. And so Joel says, "Okay, I'll be back." And and he played the banjo. So he found out he could play the banjo and sing and not stutter.
Huh.
So then he started opening Your Father's Mustaches around the country and making quite a bit of money. And so he's running a business. He doesn't stammer anymore. And he still wants to go to business school. So he goes to business school. So he opens a place in St. Louis. And some woman and her husband, John and me, but anyway, we show up at Your Father's Mustache, and they want me to open one in Denver. And so I've been told that he wore his sweaters wrong side out and back. I had been told that he stammered. And so I called him on the telephone, and I could hardly understand him. He stammered so badly. And but I said, "I think you better come out here and look at this place. It's perfect for Your Father's Mustache." So he jumped on the airplane and came out. And we became dear friends, and he was friends with all my kids, and I mean, they had Your Father's Mustache was just so much fun.
Huh.
And the night we opened was almost the end of the year. We'd had a terrible time getting liquor licenses. And, that was just a gagging story in itself. But the people are lined up around the block, lined up to get into Your Father's Mustache.
Huh.
And and somebody who'd been doing a feasibility study for me said, "Well, it's just like I told you, Dana, nobody will come to Larimer." And so, I mean, I worked on it for 22 years, and every day was either a triumph or a disaster. But at that time, people were calling me up and saying, "Well, come to Nashville. Tell us what to do." So then I started having a consulting business. And then I became active with the National Trust, and a fellow from Savannah, Georgia, and I became sort of the Pied Pipers of the preservation movement in America, and went around and gave speeches. And everybody thinks, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I walked through Larimer Square and heard people say, "Now, Mr. and Mrs. Crawford got this started. They came here from the East, and he's a doctor, and she's an architect." Nobody tells the truth.
Yeah.
But way back then, even so,
you can make up.
Yeah.
You can make up a good story.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's quite the jump, right? Of just getting all those buildings, right? Protecting it from being destroyed. We
didn't get all the buildings. We had to announce because one guy there was one restaurant called Lafitte's on the block. And the guy who had that restaurant, we thought we better go. His name was Joe Spurdy. We thought we better go tell Joe. And, we swore him to secrecy. And so 2 days later, I got a call from the Rocky Mountain News. He'd spilled the beans. And we didn't want a lot of people to know because the price would go up.
Yeah.
And so we had to kind of go ahead and announce, even though there were 3 buildings we hadn't been able to get. That was okay because they came in later. And then, once we started doing that, Urban Renewal finally just turned around. They wanted to do it too, and everybody wanted to be next to Larimer Square, and but we still didn't have any money. So that was kind of a problem. So that's been the biggest problem, is not having the money to do the stuff that could have been done. And now I'm working in a little town in southeast Colorado, and it's such a really fabulous little place. And you know what the problem is? The money.
Well, it doesn't seem like you let it stop you that much, but so then after what was next? So you were having success in Larimer Square, then you have all this energy still, and you're like, this isn't enough. What's next?
Well, now this energy thing. I was working up in Georgetown with a group of people up there that were trying to do something preservation-wise. And the guy said, Dana, do you think preservation is kind of like having a disease? I said, no question about it. Won't you do it? And you see it, and people see it, and people feel it. You can't stop.
Yeah.
You can't stop. Or I couldn't stop. So, we always say we're from a family of people that are addicted to things. I'm addicted to working and old buildings. John Crawford was addicted to rye whiskey. I had the better deal.
Yeah.
So, what are you working on?
I am working on. I just started my own company a year ago, and with a partner in Connecticut, and we have a third partner who is a developer in New York. And so our goal is to design and develop our own projects. And so right now, me and the other architect are getting the architecture business off the ground and trying to sort of raise funds towards development and work on that. But that idea of energy that's the thing that's in lack of supply. I find just there's always so many things to do and trying to push forward, and a lot of ideas, but not always time.
Yeah, well, I've got one son that's, he thinks digitally, and he's got really great ideas, but he has a hard time getting from idea to reality. Oh.
But you didn't have that issue as much.
I had good luck, and I would think and think and think and think, and then sometimes something would happen, like Idaho Springs, something terrible has happened, and the person I'm working with up there, Mary Jane Lovely, is just determined that it's going to get straightened out. And I believe so, and all of our investors believe so. And yesterday, several things happened all in one day that looks like we're going to be able to do it, and not only be able to do that, but to do this Bauhaus school building. And that'll change that town.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was. We were talking earlier where I was working on the designs for the upper part of the Argo and that whole environment up there. And then once the mill itself gets renovated and the area around it, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. Now we have a mayor up there that's this little short guy, real curly hair on here, looks kind of like an angel. And he really looks like an angel. And it's a lot easier. He's a lot easier to deal with than the last mayor. So this is, it's a town of 1,600 people. We must be doing the right thing.
Yeah. What is that? I like how you said developers like a juggler, right? And every day there's those successes and failures, right? And I feel like it's intensified maybe with developers and development and architecture, where you're flying high, and then something with the money happens and you drop down. And is it definitely a learned skill, or has it come a long way of being able to deal with the ups and downs, and say, you know what, tomorrow something else is going to happen that's good or that's bad? Or does it still feel like the sky is falling?
Well, another really good question. But the juggling thing, you're sitting at your desk, and you realize that you're juggling. You're juggling and you're juggling. And if you drop one ball and it's rolling down the path, and then crash, you drop the second one, and then you start swearing, and not very ladylike, but you get them all together again, up on your desk, and 5 or 6 days later, something happens. So, yeah. Something happens.
Yeah.
And I worked with I don't know, have you ever met Bill Parkhill?
No.
Bill Parkhill's a good architect. He did the building across the street from the Oxford Hotel. And my partner and I worked on it with him, and we'd ask for outrageous things, and he'd get them done. But he says that it doesn't really matter what's going on. You have to apply the 24-hour rule. And everything, if you just calm down, if it's really good or it's really awful, you just calm down, and 24 hours later, something will happen. And it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that mean you stop answering all those phones that keep ringing when everybody's freaking out in those 24 hours, and you just
well, sometimes you're answering the phone and you think, is this a call? I mean, you're in the moment.
So obviously, you have so many projects we could talk about. So, the flour mill here, the Oxford, Union Station, just a few. But do you remember a specific moment of that being true the most, of that the sky is really falling, and then within 24 hours it totally flips around? What's one that sticks out in your mind?
Well, the Union Station was pretty easy to be in love with. And I had a lot of type A partners. And I had to figure out how I was going to get it to be the way I wanted it. And and it really required a lot of money. So, but I had some people that lived in this building on the top floor who are part of the Walmart family. And so I kept having them give me financial statements that I never looked at so that I could give it to the Urban Renewal Authority and to the people that building's owned by Regional Transportation.
Oh, right.
So when we're getting about finished and we had to be getting on to opening, we needed, from this group, we needed a large amount of money. And they brought in a bunch of lawyers and a bunch of people from Fort Worth. And those people wanted us, all of us who had worked so hard on this and who were professional developers and hotel operators and designers and architects of many years. And these people came in and they wanted to take over. And we didn't want them to take over. It wasn't fair.
Yeah. In the last minute. Yeah.
At the last minute. So we said, gulp, no thanks. Gulp, no thanks. And a couple of my partners went out and they got some developers that had been originally from California who had come to northern Colorado and opened quite a few things, and McQuinney brothers. And so they called up one of the McQuinney brothers and they said, we got to have breakfast. And he said, well, when would we do that? And they said, well, tomorrow. And they said, how about 7:30? He says, I already have a 7:30. So they say, how about 6:30? Well, I can do that. So then they went and they explained the whole thing to him. And then how much money do you need? We need $8 million. And when do you need to know? Well, we need to know late this afternoon.
Our 24 hours is almost up. Yeah.
So that these people are on the 24-hour thing. Anyway, so he said, well, I'll get hold of my brother and we'll talk about it. I think we might be interested. So about early afternoon, the phone rang. My partner's Walter Eisenberg. I'm trying to get him to run for mayor. And the voice on the other end says, we're in.
Easy. Yeah.
So, and they've gone on to really be involved with a lot of really, really big people, Elon Musk. So, it was that, I think, answers that question, that things can turn around in a really big hurry.
Yeah. 6:30 breakfast.
Yeah.
And, to lunch. He was, yeah.
But I mean, that story's kind of funny. So it's it's just magic.
Yes. Now I'm speaking of magic. Interested to hear more about Trinidad. So what drew you there, and what are you excited about?
Well, here you can. I thought you might ask.
Yeah, I saw you itching to talk about it. So yeah, we're looking at some renderings here and description of the Fox West Theater.
Yeah, built in 1908.
1908.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't in Salina the main theater is called the Fox Theater? So
It was a big chain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, big chain. The man who built it in Trinidad was named Mr. West.
Ah.
And so it didn't have anything to do with direction. But and they already had an opera house, and it had closed, and so everybody wanted them to get another opera house. So they had a pair of fabulous architects, the Rapp brothers. Have you heard of the Rapp brothers?
No, I haven't.
Well, their books have been written about them. They're 4 brothers, all architects.
Wow.
2 went to the East Coast and designed the fancy movie theaters.
Fancy what?
Movie theaters.
Oh, okay.
And 2 had been in Trinidad, and they designed the Fox West, which has many, many features in it that have been used all over the world. They were very original people.
Huh.
So I didn't know all that when I walked into that theater, but I knew that enough to know that they didn't have any business tearing it down, because it was a gem, and that it would draw people to their town.
Yeah. I mean, and you have to. There are so many of these interesting small Colorado cities around. What did this building in particular draw you to Trinidad, or had you been interested in that before, or what about Trinidad?
Trinidad is in a part of the world that is it's a lot too complicated.
Huh.
It's got a lot of green shrubs. It's got a lot of dramatic architecture, stone buildings and brick buildings. It's got a main street that is paved with bricks that are embossed with Trinidad.
Really?
It has a history, just an unbelievable history. It's been through big times and bad times, and it used to be that when I was really having a hard time with the Denver Urban Renewal Authority, I would say, if I can't get this done, I'm just going to go to Trinidad and get a sex change, because they were doing. Still, if
Right,
you say,
yeah.
if you say I'm working in Trinidad, Colorado, they say, "Oh, that's the sex change work," headquarters of the world. Well, now they do it every place. So, I mean, it's not that isn't the boom part, but that's one of the boom parts. And they had a big mining boom part where they would. It was the thing about the town is that it had an urban life at one time when it had a lot of population, and so it now feels it like a little city. And it's a population of 10,000 instead of 30,000. So, and now, of course, people are beginning to discover it and want to be doing the digital world there. And then they're wanting to do the artistic world. And then they're wanting to do musical stuff. And and then they want to save it and be a community. But they don't quite know how.
Yeah.
And that's where I come in.
Yeah. So what are you doing? So you're doing renovating the theater, and then you have other projects going on?
Yeah. We have all by the same architects. We have a beautiful building that's kind of out from downtown, beautiful brick building that it was a school. And we're turning it into an artist's living, working place to share. And it's going to be sensational.
Yeah.
It sits up high, looks out over the town, looks at, we have kind of one mountain that's being turned into a state park now, Fisher's Peak. And then there's another place that you see that has a huge sign on it that says Trinidad, and then cleverly Trinidad. And then you look off in this direction and you see a mountain range, beautiful mountain range, and snow-peaked mountains. And you think, gosh, I've met a lot of really interesting people lately here. I wonder what's going to happen. And then you go to City Hall and you go to City Council meeting and you think, I can't stand this. And then the city manager that's been there just a few years and is the third or fourth city manager in just a few years quits. And the ball starts rolling down the hill.
and with all that topography, it goes really fast, the ball.
Yeah. But what we did, you couldn't believe how inexpensive. Everything's so expensive in Denver. So that was one of the reasons I went down there. Good architecture. And you should see the First National Bank building. Oh, it's just terrific. And it's an historic district. I bought a building that had been a department store. Really that ugly building. And it has 6,000 square feet on the main floor and 6,000 square feet on the lower level. So I rented the lower level to the city to put all the stuff that had been in the theater that was collectible. And they pay $600 a month. And then on the main level, we did a marketplace. And we have 24 tenants. And they kind of stagger up. And when you go down, I'm very proud of that place because it's just loaded with good people, and they're nice merchandise for sale, and it's profitable. And then there's a beautiful shop down there of American Indian wear that is owned and operated by a great woman who is from Denmark. And so after being in that part of the world, you know that they're different.
Yeah.
And then I bought a house down there. So it's a really fantastic house, mid-century modern house. You'll have to get your wife and come down.
Yeah, we will. We definitely need to get down there.
Yeah. It's halfway to Santa Fe.
Yeah.
So it's a good place to have fun. So, it sounds like you've got a big project and covering a lot of territory.
Yeah, this firm. Yeah. Yeah. Just this idea of always having a lot of balls in the air, and growing up in Kansas, I think my parents had 15 acres out in the country. We grew up out in the country, and I would always just go out and look, you really feel the dome, right, of the horizon.
Yeah.
It's just flat everywhere. And it was a beautiful childhood, but I would just stand there and be like, I need to get out. I need to be around people. I need to see things. And my mom grew up in Washington, D.C., and we'd always go back there. And so I'd get that sort of culture and that urbanity. But then, architecture just really released that in me. And then I've just kind of exploded around the world and lived in the Netherlands for years, and Italy and Mexico and New England and here. And
Yale wasn't a very bad deal either. But
again, just opening up doors, and being a Kansas guy there and meeting different people, and but and then working at different firms and different levels of firms, but never very long. I'd always quit and go somewhere else. But just that idea that, okay, you can have architecture, but the architecture most of the time is only as good as your client and is willing to do. And this idea of, okay, let's grab this agency and have this vision of a place, and then figure out and make it happen somehow, right?
Yeah.
It really excites me. But what's your advice for young developers or younger people who want to make a change?
Well, Chris maybe could tell you better than I, because I was very involved with his career. He had somebody that he was working with that I felt that's going to hold him back. So I said, you have to make a change. And it was really hard for him to do, but I'm sure he would tell you that it was really, really good thing to do. So you have to be sure about the people you work with.
Interesting.
I always say you have to I've just been through it this week, because every now and then I have to save Larimer Square all over again. And so these people have come in from California and North Carolina and other places, and they are now they're combined in a group called Asana, and Asana is wanting to do some wonderful things in Larimer Square that really need to be done, but they also want to change Larimer Square, and it would be bad. I mean, it eradicates Larimer Square.
Really?
And so I have to. It went to the commission this week, the city commission, and the rules are just all about the body of each building. But one of the architects said, there has to be something about the soul. So I'm getting to the point that you have to really count on your feelings, how you feel about something. And, I think that maybe the Kansas thing be interesting to pursue this over a glass of vodka, but somehow or another you have to be in touch with your feelings.
Yeah, because you have to believe in it so much, right? To be able to fight it as much as you do.
Also, you have to be able to say, "This is it. This is it," even if you're not sure.
Yeah. This is it. I think this is it. Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, but But I mean, that's so fun about having a partner you work with, because, and then maybe you have some other partners that come into the deal and kind of screw it up, and you have to, give it up. You have to give it up, and then those aren't very good feelings. But Chris and I worked on. He didn't work on this building so much, but we built a new building that had to kind of go along with this building, and we had to get the approval of the in preservation, you're all involved with the Department of the Interior, and so we had to get the approval of the Department of the Interior about the new building. Well, he designed, I don't know, 4 or 5 buildings, the models and so we got a photograph of about 6 buildings, and they'd all been turned down by the Department of the Interior. And finally, he built one and said, we both said, this is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I get goosebumps talking about it. What kind of floor are you going to put in? Well, I think it should be a brick floor. No. I think there should be a lot of wood in this building. Well, how are we going to decide?
How did you decide?
My way.
Your way? Yeah.
But actually, this floor is from a gymnasium floor in Golden. A basketball court.
Nice.
And a lot of light in here.
Yeah.
Mid-century modern, I've been kind of spending a lot of time with Charles and Ray Eames.
Yeah. We have two of the lounge chairs around us here. We inherited a Peedcraft version of the chair, but from 1955. That from my wife's grandparents. We had it restored and have it in our living room, and yeah, they're the most comfortable chairs, even as the knockoff, of the Eames. But yeah,
I don't have a problem with knockoffs.
Yeah. Well, I just thank you so much for taking this time with me, and just thank you for everything you've done for our city and our state, and inspiring example. So thank you.
Well, I like us Kansans.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate to call.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You can visit architecting.com, that's architect-ing.com, to see images from this week's guest.
And please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Have a great week and keep connecting.
Hi, I'm Eli. This show is made by my mom and dad and these people.
Heidi Mendoza.
Aaron Best. Kyle Bruner.
Emily Childs.
Trevor Notsko.
Zach Huff. Rob Cleary. All right, let's get a coffee. See ya.